Hi, it's day 5 of our 40-day storm journey, and it has me asking the question, where is God in the storm? Where is God in our storms? Is He there? And I found that He was there in the storm. And my answer is He is in every storm, because He uses everyday people, everyday ordinary people. And I call them God with skin on. And I remember praying when I was sitting in Kansas hotel, or even the night that I heard he was in the hospital. I just needed Eric to know that God was there. And I thought, how is he going to know without it being somebody he can see and hear and who could touch him? And so I prayed that prayer from the very beginning. God, you have to show up with skin on. So far in my journey, as we hit day 5, there's been God with skin on. And so far, Kim drove. My friend Kim drove, and I didn't drive. So there was no car stranded in Kansas City. And she was able to drive when maybe I wouldn't have been able to drive. And she took me to the airport. There was Jan, who prayed with me that very first night. And there was Sally, who prayed with me the next day. And there was Penny. There was Penny, who used to live in Kansas and now lived on the Big Island. And though she couldn't help me directly, she directed me to Susan. And Susan was the one who had a son who nearly died in Hawaii with a rare disease. A healthy kid that all of a sudden wasn't. And I believe he was on respirator and in a coma and given up for good. And she prayed him through. And she told me, almost yelling at me, you need to go to Hawaii and you need to pray over your son and you need to pray the entire room clean and you need to go now. And then you're about to meet 2 more. God with skin on as we enter the airport. So Kim drove me to the airport, and by now it's late afternoon. Kind of spent the morning figuring out what I was going to do, talking to people, and then, you know how it goes. It just is all of a sudden, let's get to the airport. And though the airport maybe was a half an hour, 40 minutes from where we were, to finally get packed up from the hotel and get there, I believe it was 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And we drove in, and we did not know that airport. There were 3 terminals, I believe. And we thought, well, which one has flights to Hawaii? And it was just a matter of, let's stop at one, and if they don't have flights, we'll go to the next one. So when we stopped, you know, Kim said, don't take a suitcase, because this place might not even have the flights. Besides, all my clothes were dirty, and they were absolutely not Hawaii style. I was not packed to be heading to tropics. I was packed to be heading to the Midwest November, which is cold. And so I didn't really have anything to bring, but I was going to come back and get my suitcase and fill it with my stuff. But I did take my purse with my money and my ID, and almost without thinking, I just grabbed my Bible and I threw it in my purse. And then we went in and spent over an hour trying to figure out flights, because in my mind, I was going to be there for 1 week. I needed a 1-week round trip ticket to Hilo. And they were trying really hard to find a flight that still went out Saturday night. And they weren't finding anything to figure it out. And finally, and part of it was, well, it's going to be over $2,000. And at the time, in 2011, with 2 children in college and 2 in high school and 4 in having had braces, that was just like, whoa, that's a lot. Can we figure out a better plan? And yet they finally figured something out and then said, Kim noticed, well, that's not Hilo, that's Kona. And I was like, well, I don't even know where I'm going. And so they had to start the process over. And finally, and because it was going to be Thanksgiving, it was just really difficult to find a flight that was going out that night. They said I could wait till the next day. And I thought, I'm not waiting in Kansas City until Sunday. And so Kim thought of something I didn't. Because I had it in my control. I was going to be in charge of how this was going to unfold. But Kim said, why don't you just get a 1-way ticket? And the reason, that's just funny to me that I didn't think of it. But the reason I didn't think of it was because I had it in my mind how this was going to play out. And this is what I thought. Nobody stays in the hospital for longer than a week. And Eric's a healthy kid. And if they don't figure out what he's got, we can take him home to Minnesota and we'll figure it out at Mayo Clinic. And then I thought, maybe he'll be better and then he'll stay. And I'll get a few days of him showing me around Hawaii. And maybe he will be healthy enough to stay there, or maybe he'll want to come home. But either way, I was going to Hawaii and I was staying a week. That's how I was going to control it, right? Control it. But it was Marta and Anthony, God with skin on, that just kept taking the time to help me find a flight that I could go to Hilo Saturday night. And they worked hard. They worked tirelessly hard with me to figure out what I could afford, and I'm sure it was over $1,000 for a 1-way, but that felt better than $2,000. And I just needed to go, but so they got me a ticket, and there I am, ready to go. And I said, well, I got to go back to the car, and I've got to get my stuff, and then I'll be back. And they said, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, but your flight is ready to take off. You need to get to the gate now. And I was like, but my stuff. I don't even go on an overnight without my overnight bag. The security, my stuff, my deodorant, my hair stuff, my underwear. I needed my stuff. And they said, no, you need to go now. I also felt I needed paper and a pen. I'm sure I had a pen in my purse, but I didn't have any paper. And I have read a quote from, I think it's an author, Flannery. I don't know. I can't remember the author, but she said what I feel. I don't know what I think until I write it down. And I needed paper so I could write down, so I knew what I was thinking. And there was a kiosk with a little tablet, and Kim is like, no, you don't have time to stop and buy a tablet. And I was like, I have to. And so God let me have this tablet, this spiral bound notebook. Grabbed it and got to my flight. I don't know if you ever feel like you're in a crisis or in a storm and you need to control everything that you can, and you need to be in charge of how this is going to play out. And I'm no different. This is how, if I would have had my way, If I could have had my suitcase, I would have brought my suitcase. Even if I brought dirty clothes, I would have brought mine, and then I could have found a place to wash them. I would have had my toiletries and my stuff, and I just would have felt better. And I would have, 2011 didn't have a smartphone, but I would have if I could have one. And I would have been researching. I would have been researching all those diseases that Susan told me to ask about. And I would be checking how is that a good hospital? Is Hilo Medical even a good place to be? And I would have been doing my homework. And I would have had an itinerary. I would have had a hotel booked. And I would have had the closest one to the hospital. And I would know how far the airport is to the hospital. And I would know how far the hotel was to the hospital. And I would have researched that and booked that and had that all figured out. And I would know if they have taxis or rent-a-cars or how I was going to get from the airport to the hospital. That would have been all figured out. But God, I would have also brought my husband or somebody with me. I wouldn't have gone alone. I didn't want to go alone. I had no idea what I was going to do. And what I found is it was God's gift to me to strip me of everything that I wanted to do, to be in charge of, so that it would make it very easy for me to see that it wasn't me, that it was Him. You see, I would have given myself credit for being a good researcher and a good planner, and I would have also, you know what I would have done with my smartphone on those flights is I would have distracted myself and I would have played some games, I'm sure. And I would have had a selfie or a FaceTime with Eric, so I would have seen him. I would have known what he looked like, and I would have talked to him face to face as best I could. I couldn't do any of that. I had no idea. I didn't even know how to pronounce Hilo. I didn't know where I was going. And I just want to say that I believe God that gave that to me as a gift, because had I been able to control anything, I would have. And then who gets the credit? But because I had nothing but Jesus, I had to learn something. And Corrie ten Boom, if you don't know her, you got to read her. A Holocaust survivor, a Christian who hid Jews from the Nazis in World War II. This is what she says: "You may never know that Jesus is all you need until Jesus is all you have. And all I had was Jesus. And I'm here to tell you it's more than enough. More than enough." Jesus, at the time, it seemed like he was stripping me of all that would be helpful, all that would be good to get through this. But what he was doing was making it very easy for me to simply trust him. There wasn't a lot of bridges to cross. There was one bridge, and is it safe? Can I trust that bridge? Well, Linda, it's the only bridge. Are you going to trust it? And I did. I just decided, Jesus, I don't have anything. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't even want to be going. I'm going alone. And I just wanted to say that's where I was. And after, he's been already saying to me, giving me all kinds of people God was skin on, but I really just had to surrender. And I challenge you, and I'm not challenge you, but I just encourage you that the sooner you just surrender and say, okay, I lean on you, and not on my own understanding. You are enough. You are more than enough. My grace, he says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. You can't, but I can. Watch what I can do. So I'm ready to take off on a flight, and you will be with me on that flight tomorrow. But I leave you today with those of us, if you're like me and want to just control the outcome and influence the outcome and make sure it turns out the way you would like it to do. I say the sooner you can just let it go and just trust and cry out when you start to flail and cry out when you're scared and cry out when you're sinking. Cry out to Jesus and he'll be more than enough. Leave a comment. I'll pray for you specifically. Leave a private message. I will pray for you. And I know that there's other people here who will pray for you. That's why I encourage you to leave a public comment, because there are people that will be joining in and praying for you with me. See you tomorrow on our flight from Kansas City to Dallas-Fort Worth.